Well, hello everyone. Uh, Welcome to this seminar of microeconomics. Uh, I will try to give you like a summary of the main ideas. I will not give you the entire lecture because this week, for example, it involves 4 chapters. If I want to really explain 4 chapters, it will take you a couple of hours, and it's going to be boring for you and it doesn't make sense. You can read it in the book. So what I will do every week is to give you like a summary of the main ideas. The first thing is Mankiw has a very neat like a summary of the main ideas in this chapter 1. It's called the 10 Principles of Economics. That it gives you like a hint of what are the main concepts that you need to learn. Economies. Number one is the concept that people face trade-offs, and what it means is that whenever you make a decision, you are leaving out another decision. Like, for example, if you decide to do the dishes today, it means that this half an hour that you are doing the dishes, you are not working. This leads to the concept of opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means exactly that. So you have a time, you have some times. Time is a resource. You can use this time to study, to work, to do the dishes, to sleep, to spend some time with friends, whatever. So and this is called the opportunity cost in the sense that you could be producing something alternative than what you are doing. And this can be a very, very important concept. Imagine Bill Gates, for example. Bill Gates probably is excellent typing letters. Probably he can write the best letters of the world. The point is that there is an opportunity cost. While he's typing a letter, he can spend 1 hour. During 1 hour, he can make $10 million if he negotiates with the president of another multinational company, whatever. So it's better for Bill Gates to have someone that types letters while he's closing deals with different presidents of different companies, and this is the opportunity cost. So it's the money that you are not making because you are using your resources for one thing instead of another. In the case of Bill Gates, he's using his time, which is a resource. The next concept is the concept of rationality and marginality. This is very neat. This is a concept that was developed during the 19th century. In the 19th century, there was like a very famous school of thought that's called utilitarianism, that they started to develop mathematical models to show how people make decisions, make rational decisions, choosing the alternatives that produce the best utility for a person. Utility for you can be that you love to eat ice creams and then they give you the maximum utility, or you prefer to go to a soccer game and this gives you the maximum utility. Okay, and these produce very sophisticated mathematical models, and during those years they developed the differential calculus, integrals, whatever, that and that led to the marginal economics, if you want. That is that you have to compare the marginal benefit and marginal cost of every single decision. So when you make a decision, you don't look what happened in the last years. You look at the decision today, which is called the marginal benefit and marginal cost. And this is supported by very sophisticated mathematical models. Classes. The next concept, well, is the concept of incentive. It's kind of simple. So everyone is probably what we discuss has incentive. The next concept is the benefits of trade, and we will discuss this today. So trade is beneficial. The next concept is that the concept of markets that we have here in Western countries. The concept that the markets is the best way to allocate resources to put together. The next, okay, so market economy basically is a way to allocate. It leads to Adam Smith's invisible hand, that is like the people that are efficient in producing something with their resources, and the people that want to buy the produce those efficient producers get together in the markets, and so they kind of choose each other, if you want. So consequently, this is the best way, the smartest way. The next concept is, okay, so what are governments for? If governments intervene in the market, they can produce some negative impact, and for the most part can be true, but also government put some rules. Some governments are beneficial. In addition, they defend property right. Without property right, you cannot have free markets. They try to solve issues of market failure. There are many situations in specific situations. For example, the concept of market power. So some actors that have some monopoly strength, if you want, and they can abuse of their market power, charging unfair prices, or the concept of externality, that is some people that can abuse of some. Let's go. I don't want to get into all the details. The next is the next concept is the concept of inflation. That is when there is if countries print money, or they inject money into the economy, this produces inflation. And inflation obviously is negative for of injecting money can produce like some sort of trade-off that is can be good for workers because they can have better salaries, but can be bad for the effect on inflation. Normally, inflation and employment. Okay, so this is kind of a little introduction, and now is a couple of ideas about how is it to be like to think like economist. And you must have seen this circular flow that basically connects the firms and the families, the houses, if you want. So based on this, you see how the external square, if you want, is the flow of money. The internal square, the red one, is the flow of inputs and outputs, goods, if you want. So based on this, you see how firms produce some products that are purchased by the families, and in exchange, the families pay for that and provide some labor force, whatever. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hit this. When I try to use the laser, I click and goes to the next page. I apologize. Okay, so so what I was telling you is that you may wonder why there is not a straight line connecting these 2 points, and that is what I told you before. These efficiencies, economies of scale that lead to these gains, if you want, that goes, if you want, above a straight line. So everything that moves out of this is efficiency. It means with the same resources you can produce more. Okay, the next concept is that you can shift the production possibilities frontier based on new technologies, or new discoveries, or new raw materials, or the making raw materials less expensive or whatever. So you can produce changes. For example, today you can produce more computers because computers are cheaper, and the market is more efficient in producing computers. And this is a wealth that you are producing. This is a growth, economic growth. So you are expanding the production possibilities frontier. Okay, let's get into the third chapter today. You see that I'm focusing on the key ideas. Is everything that is related to trade. And you have seen before this concept of a production possibilities frontier. And you will see here another line. This is not the same line. So the production possibilities frontier basically is telling you, so using the resources of the economy, you can produce one or another product. This is just a budget line. So with this specific amount of money, and you can produce 8 ounces of meat or potatoes, 32 ounces of potatoes. So you have like these 2 budget lines. And what you see here is that you have one farmer and one rancher, and you see how the rancher is more efficient in producing meat, how the farmer is more efficient in producing potatoes. So you see that both are efficient and both can produce, both can be self-sufficient. For example, the farmer may decide not to trade with anyone, so be close, like a closed economy, and produce both the meat and the potatoes. And the rancher can do the same, produce by themselves all the meat and the potatoes, and just have a closed economy so they don't trade with each other. So in that case, this is the combination of meat and potatoes that each one can produce and consume if you want. So if they were closed economies. But when you open the possibilities of trading, in that case, you realize that each one of them is more efficient in producing one of the products. For example, the farmer is more efficient in producing potatoes, while the rancher is more efficient in producing meat. So in that case, probably it's more efficient that the farmer produces only potatoes, the rancher produces only meat, and then they trade because they become more efficient, and as a whole, they will produce more wealth or more products or more welfare, if you want. So the farmer will make more money, and with that money, producing potatoes, will be able to buy a higher combination of meat and potatoes, and this is what you see here, this red dot. And the same, the rancher can produce a better combination of meat and potatoes based on specializing only one product, can be the meat, for example. So we'll produce only meat, consume some part of the meat, sell the other part of the meat. Since it is more efficient in doing it, we'll make more money, and with that more money, we'll, at the end of the day, be able to consume a higher combination of meat and meat and potatoes. It's the same as it happens with us. So you can become a dentist or an engineer or a medical doctor or whatever, and you make money, and with that money you buy computers, you buy cars, you travel, etc., etc. So you specialize in something, and specializing in something, you become more efficient and make more money. If instead of specializing, each one of us would decide, for example, instead of myself becoming a professor of economics, I would decide to be a dentist and an engineer and an architect and whatever, I would do everything very poorly. So I would be a poor architect, poor engineer, poor dentist. So for me, it's better to become a professor, make millions of money. Of course, I don't. And with that, I can hire all the dentists of the planet. Okay, so, and this leads to the concept of comparative advantage. So all the countries have some absolute advantage. Let's say the US probably has an absolute advantage in many, many factors, because it has a lot of technology, has a very good education, so consequently probably is probably more efficient in everything. But maybe is more efficient in relative terms to produce technology than to produce cattle, for example. Maybe other countries are more efficient producing cattle or producing corn or sugar or whatever. So there is a disparity. It's like the example, for example, I prefer to be a professor and not to be a dentist. Probably, so this is the concept of comparative advantage. And it is connected with this concept of opportunity cost that we said before. So I don't have infinite time. I prefer to concentrate all my resources, all my time in becoming a good professor, and with that I will make enough money to hire a good dentist. So there is an opportunity cost. If I want to be a bad dentist, an inefficient dentist, I will not making money as a professor. So it's much better for me to become a professor and a dentist with the money that I make. Okay, so this leads to the concept of comparative advantage, and this is what justifies that all the countries in the world benefit from trade. And you see that there is an evidence that this is correct, that trade is beneficial for all. And you see how in the last decades that trade has been expanding all over the world, that the entire world wants to get engaged into trade and have some benefit. They also have some negative aspects that we are not going to discuss that today, but there is some negative. So while the nation, the entire nation, benefits from trade, you may have some specific sector that may suffer, like the farmers in the US. They are not as efficient as farmers in other countries because the salaries in the US are very high. Probably a farmer in other country with much lower salaries can produce much more cattle or grain or whatever than farmers in the US. So in that case, or textiles or or steel companies or whatever. So that's why you will have winners and losers always. So the nation as a whole benefits from trade, but you may have some specific sectors that suffer from trade. Okay, let's get into the fourth chapter today, and we continue focusing on the main subjects here. You see that is introducing the concept of supply and demand. It's interesting for you to know that these two concepts have been around for a bit more than 100 years, if you want, and they come from some philosophical ideas. It is kind of neat to know this, that most of the concept of demand was generated by the utilitarians in the 19th century. So they developed the utility curves, that there are some curves that, okay, we'll discuss later on. And these utility curves led to the indifference curves, and the difference curves to the demand curve. So this is kind of a discovery or a creation of these guys. And there's also some supply curves, and they were mostly the concept were developed by Adam Smith and David Ricardo, if you want, trying to compensate to the to all the factors, if you want, like the land, the capital, whatever factors of production, or the resources, if you want. So somehow, by the end of the 19th century, Marshall put together all these ideas into this framework of the supply and demand curve, putting together, you know, a set of ideas that were hanging on, if you want, before, and created this idea that became the backbone of all economics. Everywhere, in every part of economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics, international economics, managerial economics, is based on the supply and demand. So, and this also impacts on other areas of business, like in marketing. They use the supply and demand curve all the time with elasticity curves, consumer behavior, whatever, that are based on supply and demand everywhere. Practically all modern economy is based on the supply and demand. Strategic management, if you want. All the concept of market power, all the concept of how to allocate resources is based on the supply and demand. Industrial economics, that is a branch of economics that is the kind of today the backbone of strategic management, is based on supply and demand. So you see that supply and demand are a gigantic concept today, the backbone, as I said, of all the modern business and economy and everything. Okay, so let's talk about the demand curve. As you see here, you see how the demand curve is created. And basically what you have here, and you will have here from now until the end of the book, that is this chart in which in the vertical dimension you have the prices of some specific products or services or factors or whatever, and in the horizontal dimension you have the quantities of some specific production of something. So based on this, you have this line that is the demand line, that is different quantities of some specific products. So people, if the price of this ice cone is $3, people don't want to buy any ice cream. If the price is $2.50, okay, one person will buy two ice creams. If the price is $2, one person will to buy 4 ice creams, and this cone doesn't have to be a straight line, can have any shape, but even doesn't have to be a downward sloping, can be upward sloping. It depends on which products or whatever. So it doesn't have to be a straight line. This is just one specific example. So this is the demand curve. So you are correlating, if you want, how the different prices impact on the different quantities, and this is what you have in this matrix here. So you see, if the price is 0, people are willing, one person specifically willing to buy 12 cones, not more, because it's kind of, you will not spend the whole day eating ice creams. But and if the price goes up, if you want, goes from 0 to $3 here, so the quantity of cones demanded will fall to 0. So if the ice cream is too expensive, people will not want to buy, or that specific person will not want to buy a single one. And here you have two different persons. You have Catherine, that is the one that we described before, and you have Nicholas, and we have many others. So you have, according to the prices, which are the quantities of all the people want to buy, so you have the total quantity. And based on this, you build the entire supply and demand curve of the market. So you have here Catherine, demand curve, Nicholas, demand curve, and you have the entire market, that is the addition of Catherine plus Nicholas plus everybody else. So this is the, if you want, at the right you have the demand curve of the entire market. Okay, and this is a change in the demand specifically. So initially the demand is this blue line, and you can increase the demand or you can decrease the demand. And you see when you increase the demand, basically what you're doing is you are increasing the prices or you are increasing the quantities. So if you establish a specific quantity, and this is the initial demand, and you change the demand curve, so you are increasing the price. Now you are going to have this price versus the price that you had before. Or you are going to have a fixed price, and for this fixed price, it means that people are going to buy larger amounts of one specific product, in this case, ice cream. So this is the change in demand. And this change in the demand can be produced by many aspects. For example, change of income. Let's say that people start making more money, so the economy is doing very well, and GDP is growing, and salaries grow, and income grows, so people have more money. So this changes the demand curve. Prices of related products. For example, if you buy a CD, and the prices of the CD players increase, so people will stop buying CDs because you need the CD player to use the CDs. Taste, for example, you have the iPad or the iPhone or whatever, they produce changes in taste, so you abandon the old tape recorder because now you have something much more sophisticated. Expectations, imagine that tomorrow the gasoline will get more expensive, so you go today and buy more gasoline. This changes the demand curve. Number of buyers, let's say that there is a large number of people immigrating to the country, this changes the number of buyers, and this changes the demand curve. Okay, then you have another concept that is not a change in the demand curve, it's a change in the, let me show you, okay, if you see the graph in the right, you see that if the price goes from $2 to $4, people will buy, instead of 20 cigarettes per day, will consume 12 cigarettes per day. Okay, this is not a change in the demand. So the demand is just this line, and the line has not changed. This is a change in the price, and this is in the quantity, but this is not a change in the demand. The change in the demand is in the graph in the left, that moved from the blue line to the red line. This is a change in the demand, and it changes for other factors. For example, people say it's dangerous to smoke cigarettes. So people, the demand drops, people abandon cigarettes. So this is a real change in the real demand. So people will consume a lower number of cigarettes, if you want. But in the graph in the right, the demand has not changed. The quantities change and the prices change, but not the demand. You have to be very careful with it, because most likely in all these quizzes, you will have a question related to that. Okay, supply curve is practically the counter side of the demand curve. This is what the companies are willing to make, the money they are willing to make based on the products that they try to sell. So consequently, if the prices go up, they want to sell more. So you see that normally these curves are upward sloping, if you want, and this is the way normally is. And so if the prices go up here, the quantities will go up. Doesn't have to be a straight line, can have any shape, can be a curve, can be any whatever shape. And here is the same thing. So if you have one producer of ice cream and another producer of ice cream, so the combination of both, the addition of both, produces the total supply market. And this is what you see here in this graph. So you see this is produced by Ben, this is produced by Jerry, and this is produced by a combination of both, that is the total market supply. The same as we said before in the demand happens here. So you can have an initial supply curve that can move to the right, so this is an increase in the supply, or can move to the left, that is a decrease in the supply. Increase, it means that you are producing larger number of products, if you want, so the quantity is moving to the right. And this is based on different aspects, and now you have to focus on the producers, not on the consumers. Basically, the reason why the supply is moving to right is because the producers have different technologies. Consequently, they can be more efficient. So consequently, they can produce computers for a lower price if you want. So consequently, they can shift to the right. The same with the expectations, as we discussed before, the number of sellers. You have more sellers, consequently you will have more competition and the price will go down or the quantities will move to the right. Okay, based on this you have the famous equilibrium between supply and demand. So you have here the supply curve, the demand curve, where they cross is the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. And you can have two situations if you want. The first situation is you imagine that artificially the government defines that the price has to be higher than what it is. Let's say that defines a higher price for any agricultural product just to defend the market or whatever. So consequently, you will have more producers willing to sell and less consumers willing to buy. So consequently, you have a surplus. I mean, it is produced more than what the market is willing to buy. So consequently, the market naturally, if this artificial price is abandoned, the will go to the equilibrium because the buyers, the sellers need to sell, so they will start reducing the price, and when they start reducing the price, finally the demand and the supply will converge again, and consequently you have a new equilibrium. And you can have the opposite, that instead of establishing a high price, you establish a lower price, like in New York City, in which the government puts an artificial low price because consider the prices are too high. You have the opposite effect. If the price is artificially low, set by the government, in that case you will have many people that prefer not to rent their apartments, and in that low price you have many more people willing to rent the apartment, like tenants willing to rent the apartments, and consequently you have a shortage. Less apartments available, more people willing to rent. So once again, you will have, if you abandon this artificial price and leave the markets operates freely, so you will see how prices will go automatically up because there is more demand than supply. So based on this, you can establish an equilibrium, as I mentioned you before, and if you want to affect this equilibrium, if you will change the demand curve, like in this case, the demand curve has moved from this point to this point. Imagine, as I mentioned, the case of iPads, you have a new technology, everyone wants to have iPhone or whatever, so consequently there is a move in the demand. So more people are willing to buy smartphones or whatever. So consequently, Apple will be able to charge higher prices because of the demand and sell larger volumes if you want. In this case, okay, but I changed to iPad. And the same happens if you produce a change in the supply. Come on. Okay, here we go. So there is a change in the supply. In this case, there is a reduction in the supply. Imagine that the price of a gasoline is moving up because there is a shortage of oil, and consequently the gasoline goes from $2 per barrel to $2 per gallon to $3-4 per gallon. So consequently the producers, manufacturers that use gasoline, they will have to incorporate this higher cost into the final price of the products. So consequently the products will be more expensive. Consequently, people will buy less ice creams in this case with a higher price because of the more expensive gasoline. So when both supply and demand curve, you will have the same situation. Let's see how this graph accommodates. So you see in this case, supply and demand both have moved, and consequently the new equilibrium can go anywhere. It can go with a higher or lower price, or with a higher or lower volume of sales, or volume of production if you want. So consequently you can have the equilibrium can move in any direction. Okay, so this is it. Hope you enjoyed it, and good luck during this first week.